Welcome, everybody, to episode 25 of GamerVision. I am your host, Jeff, from Just One More Level, and we have Tony from Procedurally Generated with us. What have you been up to, Tony?
Howdy, howdy, everybody. I have been taking care of brand new puppies in the house, so that's been
Congratulations.
it's been like having children all over again. Getting up in the middle of the night to take them to the bathroom, or
Well,
uh, you know, feed them at every hour of the day. Well, not really, but uh,
the having any property damage yet? Anything as far as
no,
collateral damage?
no, they've been really good, and we've been really good about making sure that they're not chewing on things that they're not supposed to. I mean, the cats in the house have done enough damage to like the couches and stuff, and so the corners of
Well,
some of the couches are beyond repair, but we can keep the dogs from doing any more additional damage.
well, that's good. That's good. So for the most part, with trying to pin down a topic, or a main topic for this episode was a little difficult up until
Tuesday.
yesterday. Yeah. Um, well, yeah, Tuesday slash Wednesday, kind of that time frame.
Yeah.
Uh, been playing Eiyuden Chronicle Rising, which came out on Tuesday. A good like entry RPG. It's on Game Pass for anybody wanting to check it out.
The visual style of that game reminds me a little bit of like my first Vanillaware game.
Yeah, yeah. I'm enjoying the artwork, but I'm definitely to a point that I'm really wanting like it it it's an okay game. I'm just really looking forward to the main game that it leads into, which comes out next year. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Hopefully,
So
um,
is this just like a little prequel thing? Like you know how Bravely Default does those like 10-hour demos, which are essentially a separate sort of short prequel to the
yeah,
Bravely Default games? Is that what this is?
uh, kind of. From what I've gathered, everything that you do in this game will make an impact or make some kind of choices or decisions or something in 100 Heroes that comes out next year, which is the more of this Suikoden style spiritual successor that got kickstarted a couple years ago. Um, crazy to think that 2020 is already 2 years ago, um, but yeah, it's just kind of it's a really fun, super not complex or complicated
Yeah.
entry RPG. So I've been playing that, and that's been fun. But kind of talking about potential delays, um, something that everybody already knew was going to happen. I had a smidgen of hope, just a
You
small.
were you were holding out, and I knew that they were going to break your heart at some
Yeah,
point. I've been saying from the beginning that this game was not going to make a 2022 release.
and that game just happens to be Starfield, which I'm sure everybody is just completely surprised, just blown away by the news.
I'm shocked,
Um,
shocked and
yeah,
surprised that Starfield's not making it in 2022.
yeah. I was seeing people tweet about how they're thinking, wondering if old Todd um, really regrets like hammering that November 11th, 2022
Yeah.
release date. But you know, I think for the most part, take your time with it. Make sure it's a good release. Make sure it's a fun game. We don't need any more cyberpunks on our hands. So take your time with it.
Yeah. I wonder how much Microsoft had a hand in delaying this game. Because I think if
Oh,
maybe it was a Bethesda thing, it might have still come out this year, and it would have been
yeah,
the Bethesda buggy thing that everybody
yeah.
you
You
know
come to expect.
says is
Like,
fine. But Microsoft is like, no, 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 we're not doing the Bethesda bug thing.
yeah, like we definitely need to take we need to make sure that when this game releases that it is in the best shape and that it possibly can be. Um, and so definitely something that hopefully they, like I said, take their time with it, make sure that it's ready, don't rush it. Um, but yeah, it's still big news. Starfield getting delayed. Um, just not real shocking because
Yeah.
we all knew. And as far as big but yet small announcements go, Nintendo held their Indie World
Hmm.
2022, which had a slew of games.
Yep.
I can't remember what the total number of games was, but 20 to
It was
30 games
around
worth.
20-ish. I think the whole presentation was about 20 minutes long. Most of the
Okay.
games got between a minute and 2 minutes worth of time, and then they showed a sizzle reel at the end of just like, here's some more games. We got to get these out quickly.
Here's like 10 seconds, 10 seconds, 10 seconds. Uh, but when I first watched it, I don't know if I was just like on like a speed roll or something,
Hmm.
like speed run. I'm not really sure. I was just kind of like quickly checking out the videos and
Did you
stuff, and
accidentally have YouTube on 1.5 times speed? Is that what happened?
possibly because like I watched some stuff, and my first take of it was that I nothing quite got my attention,
Yeah.
and but then I started seeing a bunch of people talking about just all the stuff that was part of the show, and I was like, okay, maybe I missed something. So I watched it again, and and for some reason the second time I watched it, I was like, oh yeah, how did I miss this?
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was just due to some of them just having 30 seconds here or 45 seconds here that I just kind of started and skipped to the next thing and just kept skipping through. But
Yeah.
uh,
I had completely forgotten that the thing was happening. Like they announced it on Tuesday. I was like, okay, I'm gonna remember it's 9 o'clock. I can watch it while I'm sitting at work, Wednesday morning. And that 9 o'clock time rolls around, I completely forget about it. It's like 11 o'clock, and I saw somebody on Twitter was like, we need to talk about that Indie World Direct because it was awful. And I said, okay, now oh yeah, that thing was today, and now I've got to see it because if he says it's awful,
yeah,
something's happened and I need to know what it was. And I watched it and I came away quite pleasantly surprised at the amount of stuff coming out of that I was excited about.
they packed a lot into the show, which was really cool. And I am all for you know big companies providing a nice
Yeah.
platform for independent developers to be able to showcase their stuff, because even with the large conventions like what was E3 or Gamescom or anything like that, it's
Yeah.
very difficult for the smaller
It is.
studios
It
or
is.
even individual people. I think there was one or two games that were shown off in the indie world where it
I
was
know
like
at least
one
one.
person.
Yeah. And
Um,
Nintendo's been really good, especially during the Switch era. Not necessarily as much with like the Wii U, but with the Switch, they've
yeah,
been really good about presenting indie developed games and giving them their space to show themselves off and get some of that publicity. It's not perfect. There's still far too many things that come out on the
yeah,
eShop that you never hear about. Um,
yeah. But with Nintendo really shining a light on these independent developers, and in some cases like the smaller independent publishers, um, it's forced Sony and Microsoft to really say, "Hey, hey, they're not the only ones that are paying attention to indies. I mean, we're also like Microsoft does their thing, and Sony reluctantly, I feel like, was like, okay, yeah, sure, we'll
Kicking
start
and
follow,
screaming.
we'll pay attention to indies again." Um, After watching it a second time, there were a couple things I was like, oh yeah, this game like Batora, I think Batora,
I think it's
like
Batora.
um, the like action RPG coming from Stormmind and the wonderful team at
Yeah.
Team 17, known for the Worms games.
It ha-
Um,
this has the same sort of vibe as like Hades or Bastion, that top
yeah,
down sort of 3/4 view action
and
RPG.
yeah, and I am definitely a sucker for RPGs. So
Oh yeah.
once I caught that, I was like, how did I miss this the first time I watched this? Like I just don't understand. But I'm excited for that one. I know you've got quite the list.
Yeah, I normally come away from these indie things with maybe one or two games that kind of piques my interest, and there was almost a dozen, somewhere between 10 or 11 games probably, that I was like, okay, I'm going to write that one down because I'm going to remember it. Um,
That's uh, but yeah, just real quick, like Wild Frost. caught my attention. Gunbrella caught my attention. Just the, surprise. The weapon is also an umbrella.
Yeah,
So
that
that,
was a game that I'm very surprised it even was on this presentation because it's the only one that they announced that's not coming out this year. It's a 2023
yeah,
game, and I was really surprised to see that now instead of like in September or an October Indie World type
yeah.
presentation. Um, this is from the same developer who did. Oh, I have just gone blank. Uh,
I've I I can't. I know. Well, no, I was thinking
it's a
it was
cat
that.
in a mech suit. Gato Roboto. The
Oh yes,
developers of Gato
yes.
Roboto, which is a fantastic little fun black and white Metroidvania style game with a lot of
Cat in a
personality.
mech
Yeah,
suit.
yeah, it's a
That's
cat in a mech suit.
There was a good handful of games that were available same day
Mhm.
as the show. One that you actually said that you picked up, Mini Motorways,
Oh yeah, yeah. Mini
Mini
Motorways.
Motor.
Yeah, I have been waiting for a chance to play this game. It's been exclusive so far that I know to Apple Arcade, and I don't have an Apple device. I'm an Android phone user, so
That,
um, I've not been able to play this. But it's I had played the previous game from this developer, Mini Metro, which is a subway puzzle game, and you're creating subway paths to connect different subway terminals together. And this is that next step in that puzzle game type thing. I got this day of, and I've been playing it nonstop since.
and as far as like the stuff that is available, it's 14.99 on the
Mhm.
eShop, so not too expensive. Um, and there's like three or four other indie world games that were available same day on the eShop that are. What do you think of those like ragdoll physics
Have
type
you
of
never
games?
played Tabs?
I have not.
That game is addictive as heck. Like it is dumb. It is stupid, wobbly, and they used the wobble pun throughout the trailers for
Yeah,
this all
yeah,
over the place. But you play those ragdoll characters. They swing giant swords and they can't hold. They can barely hold them up, and if they swing it, it swings their whole body around. And you're
yeah,
creating these. It's got a single player campaign puzzle type thing where you have an army that you're facing, and then you have to create the troops that you're going to use to take on that army. And so it's like foot soldiers, giant cannons. Leonardo da Vinci's tank design is one of the things that you can you can build in it. You can have mammoth like cavalry type
yeah,
troops or wizards or blunderbuss guys. It's and they mix all of these different genres, and so you've got ninjas and knights fighting side by side against the undead, and it's just dumb,
yeah.
ridiculous fun. Elechead is one of the games that was made by one person.
Um,
Uh,
I don't really remember that one.
that
That one,
is, you know, the game VVV
yeah,
with like
yeah,
the
yeah,
solid black background with the bright colors in front of it. That's what
yeah.
Elechead looks sort of like. It sort of looks like a
Okay.
combination of that and Chibi Robo. Like it's a 2D
Okay. Okay.
super simplified, if I can get that word out, simplified version of like Chibi Robo, but you use the character's head as a way to supply electricity to platforms, and when you do that, some platforms will move out of the way. It will create new platforms that you can then traverse across, and so it has that same vibe as something like that, or I've gone blank on the game that uses magnets. Teslagrad. Teslagrad.
Oh, yeah,
If
yeah.
you've played that, which uses magnetism as a puzzle platforming element, this uses electricity. Um, so
But
if you take VVV, Chibi Robo, and Teslagrad, smash them all together, that's what Elechead is.
just throw them in the blender and let it go. And um,
Yeah.
but any other games that
The only other one that I really thought looked really good were like Card Shark, which they have shown before.
I
That is
like the art style.
that art, that hand animated
Yeah.
card playing, like poker playing RPG set in like medieval times, which looks really interesting.
It has very, if I'm remembering correctly, very dark but very vibrant colors,
Yes,
like
yes.
super dark blues,
Yeah.
super dark reds, like um,
Yeah, but
and
they
then
all pop against these really dark backgrounds.
yeah, yeah. That's I saw that. I was like that is very intriguing, um, and kind of lacing in like RPG mechanics and
Hmm.
stuff to it as well. Like,
Yeah.
um, definitely saw a few games in this in this indie world direct that uh, either is going the RPG route or is incorporating RPG mechanics to their games. For the most part, the reason that I think independent developers and publishers are so important is the fact that they are the creative lifeblood
Yeah.
of the industry.
Yeah, they really
And
are. The AAA studios don't take those
yeah,
risks. Uh,
not anymore.
on
They
You would not see any of these games come from somebody like Ubisoft, and they tried some of that with their little RPG teams that they put together, but and those did well, but they're not
yeah,
supporting that really well. It's You get the weird stuff from the indie developers, and then some of that stuff will catch on and sort of trickle up to
yeah,
the AAA studios, who will take some of those bits and pieces of those things and put them into their games. Um,
yeah. Well, and it's like kind of referencing back to earlier in the episode, like when Square Enix originally showed off Babylon's Fall, like everybody was like, "Oh, this is so awesome! This is going to be amazing!" Like Platinum is getting to make kind of uh, a Soulsborne type of game. Like this is going to be great. And then as time went on, and the more we saw of it, people were like, "Okay, I don't quite get where you're going with this." And then they released a demo, and everyone was just there was this collective, "No, this is not what we wanted,"
yeah,
and very much it seemed like Square Enix was like, "Hey, let's see if we can cram as many currencies and microtransactions and games as a service things into this one game and see if people like it." And it did not fare well.
yeah.
But it shows just how lack of a risk a lot of these big companies want to take. They obviously it's a business. They want to make money, and everybody making games wants to make money.
Yeah.
Um, but the independent developers, the independent publishers are the ones that are taking those risks and doing these colorful games. Uh, like even though it is completely nothing that I'm interested in, that biopic music
Oh yeah, we
rhythm,
are OFK or something.
something like that. Like I saw that I was like,
Not for
this is
me.
not for me.
Yeah.
This is not for me. But um, kudos, uh,
Yeah,
more
there
power
is
to
going
you.
to be an audience for all of those games
Yeah,
on the list that they showed
yeah,
off this week, and that's the thing about these indie world things compared to something like a big Nintendo Direct. When that June Direct rolls around and you get Mario game, Metroid game, Donkey Kong game, Zelda
Zelda.
game, and you come
Yeah,
away jazzed, and you're like, I am very much looking forward to what is coming from Nintendo. Um, you get a very different feel from the indie world stuff, where you're like, okay,
yeah,
that was cool. There was one game there that like really good. The other stuff, I don't really care about, but
yeah.
that's fine. Um, not every game is going to be something you're going to be interested in, and that is
Yeah,
perfectly okay. Uh,
which is I think what happened with my first take of watching the indie world was very much like I I don't really know what I was looking for, but I was just going through. I'm like, okay, nope, nope, what, nope, nope.
mhm.
I didn't necessarily give a whole lot of time to really grasp what they were going for.
Most of the time, I'm not interested in the majority of it, and maybe one game sparks my interest. And then there's times like this where you think, okay, I'm not going to really be interested in any of this
Yeah,
stuff. And I come away with a dozen games, and I'm like, okay, I've got to wish list all of these. How am I going to afford these games? I mean, they're going to be small, fairly inexpensive games, 5,
yeah,
10, $15, up to some of them. I think Soundfall, which is another one that looks fantastic, a rhythm based action RPG, is like $25. Um,
like again, another RPG,
yeah.
another RPG flavor. Um, but yeah, like there is definitely a lot in this show, and it like they're independent games are very much like over the last 10 years, I probably, as far as like RPGs went, Undertale was probably the game that I went into super low expectations. I know people talk, highly about it, but for the most part, I was like, I don't really, I'm gonna temper my expectations, and I was completely blown away by the entire experience.
Yeah.
The soundtrack, the comedy, the dialogue, the super unique gameplay, um,
And
and the
see
fact that there was,
that's the kind of game that doesn't really click with me. I found that I didn't like Undertale at all. Like there's
oh,
some interesting stuff. The music is really good. My kids listen to the music, the soundtrack nonstop.
like
The music is really good.
Sans is great.
Some of the characters are really funny and interesting, but the
Yeah,
gameplay does not vibe with me. I just don't like the way that Undertale did the RPG stuff, and that's fine because there's going to be other
yeah,
games that
yeah.
that vibe with me that everybody else is like that game is ridiculous and stupid, and I'm like, okay, I want to be a giant enemy crab for the first time and actually be doing massive damage to the heroes.
Yeah,
um,
I liked just part of like that reference back to that Sony E3 conference. The you can attacking you know giant enemy crabs in their magical weak points. Like I was like that for me that was a nice Easter egg. Just a good jab at kind of a bygone era
yeah,
of where like some big companies, not naming names, didn't take themselves so seriously. And I personally would love to see a return of like Kevin Butler. I think that would be great
yeah.
for a certain brand that will go nameless. But anyway, this I definitely Nintendo has a fairly solid lineup for the Switch, whether it's big titles, independent titles.
Yeah.
This year is very much stacked, and despite some of the delays that have recently been announced, um, I know a lot of people are now speculating that God of War Ragnarok might also get the delay hammer. I was going to say the delay ban hammer, but it doesn't work that way.
It's not
Um,
going to get banned. It just might get delayed a little bit.
Pushed back. Um, but that's there's all sorts of stuff that's going to be happening. We're like between procedurally generated and just one more level. Like we are doing what we can to cover as much of this stuff as we possibly humanly can.
Yeah.
Um, Between all the live streams and trying to just get games out there, your podcast, this show, um, we're trying. But let us know in the comments what you think, the games you're looking forward to, some of the stuff that happened in the indie world that you are just excited for, and speculation, because we are just like about a month away
We are coming into
from,
E3 season.
yeah, that's Microsoft has said we're doing our showcase. Nintendo's obviously going to be doing their big, what it's a Treehouse. Is it the Treehouse
Uh,
Direct?
we don't know if they're going to do Treehouse. I assume they will. They did it last year when E3 was more or less canceled. They did
Yeah.
their direct, and then they did I think one day of Treehouse stuff. Whereas normally they for the last few years they've been doing 3 days of Treehouse stuff. I would
Okay.
love. I hope they do Treehouse stuff because that's where you get that chance to get that deep dive into some of those games that they show off at the beginning during their direct, and then you're like, okay, I want to see some more of that, and then you get 45 minutes of developer interview playing the
Like
game while they're
this
talking
is
about
what
it.
we're
And
doing. Um, But as far as anything exciting happening with procedurally generated, anything you want to put a spotlight on for?
we've been doing the Guardian games in Destiny 2 on Wednesday nights.
All right. Well, we will definitely. I'll try to have like links and stuff, to, some somewhere, probably in the description. I haven't quite figured out how to get those graphics up on the actual the videos themselves, so it will most likely be in the description. Um, but we will see you with the next episode of GamerVision right here on YouTube.
Bye, everybody.